length. Gaining ground on the far outside is Pleasant Colony, winner of the Kentucky Derby. Then it's 38 paces. Paristo back on the rail, then A Run. They are approaching the top of the stretch. Bold Ego has the lead by a length and a half. Paristo on the rail in second. Pleasant Colony on the outside. Pleasant Colony now takes second. Paristo back into third, then 38 paces in fourth. It's Bold Ego leading down the stretch by a length and a half. Pleasant Colony gaining ground gradually on the outside. Pleasant Colony alongside Bold Ego at the 16th hole. Pleasant Colony now puts ahead in front. Bold Ego back into second. Paristo is third as they race to the wire. It's Pleasant Colony in front.
In horse racing, only the top 3 performers finish in the money. But in the equal opportunity world of the National Hockey League, 16 of 21 teams make the Stanley Cup playoffs. In the first round, 14th seeded Edmonton knocks off proud Montreal in 3 straight. But the Oilers quickly learn that today's dynasty builders are from Long Island, and the Islanders sweep by Edmonton and the Rangers in defense of their crown. The Stanley Cup Finals feature a challenge to New York from the Minnesota North Stars, looking for their first Cup championship. The Islanders' Butch Goring is still right on target in Game 5 after his pivotal hat trick in the 3rd game crushed the North Stars' spirits. Needing this game to wrap up a 5-game series win, the Islanders send out the line of Tonelli, Nystrom, and Merrick to dig up more trouble. Wayne Merrick's goal puts the Islanders up 2-0, and then the oldest Islander, 31-year-old Goring, gets his 2nd scoring blast of the night to wrap up the series MVP award. Bryan Trottier is still playing with a separated shoulder, and he scores in a record 25th straight playoff game. Celebrating their 2nd straight Stanley Cup, the triumphant Isles seem miles ahead of the rest of the National Hockey League. In an up-and-down 1981 hockey season, there is also a cause for sadness, as Roger Doucette, the inspirational voice of Canada, who's been such a tradition in the National Hockey League, passes away at the age of 61. Sports 81, the George Plimpton scrapbook returns in a moment. May of 1981 marks the renewal of a splendid basketball rivalry. Boston versus Philadelphia in the NBA playoffs. The 2 teams finished with identical records, but Philly opens with a 3-1 lead in the series. Boston comes clawing back, winning 2 straight games by a single basket. And there wasn't a doctor in the house who could cure the Sixers' 7th game woes. Philly fails to score a field goal in the last 5 minutes, and they find out a bird with the ball is worth 2 off the board. The Celtics complete an incredible comeback, and the survivors of this titanic struggle are overwhelming favorites in the NBA Finals. From out of the West come the Houston Rockets. Led by Moses Malone, the Rockets cling tenaciously to a hope for their first NBA championship and split the first 4 games. But then that old Boston tradition takes over. Cedric Cornbread Maxwell is voted the most valuable player, as even with Moses, Houston falls short of the promised land. For the 14th time, the Boston Celtics are basketball's world champions. A world title is just what Jerry Cooney has on his mind. The undefeated top heavyweight contender pummels Kenny Norton senseless in round 1. It's his 21st knockout in 25 fights, and Cooney is left to wait for a shot at the crown. Meanwhile, the winningest jockey of all time reaches another milestone in May. The Shoe pushes his career earnings to nearly $82 million, and he's still going strong at age 50. Still at the top of his game at age 40 is Pete Rose, who stays among the leading hitters in May while pursuing a hit record he's coveted for years. The granddaddy of all auto races turns into a battle royale, both on the track and off. Bobby Unser sets the early pace, clocking the 4th lap at better than 190 miles per hour. But it's ruled that Unser passes cars under a yellow caution flag, and Mario Andretti is declared the official Indy winner. It's the first time a driver who gets the checkered flag is stripped of his title, but later an appeal returns the honor to Unser. Andretti contests that ruling, and so the race goes on, and on, and on.
It's turning out to take longer to decide who won the race than it did to run it. We can only hope they figure it out before it's time to run the next one. Looking for a clear-cut winner as our May Performer of the Year, I'll take Pleasant Colony, who'll be going for the Triple Crown when we come back.
The George Plimpton scrapbook continues as Pete Rose talks to the Gipper. A coronation is held on the stately lawns of Wimbledon while a tempestuous Yankee disrupts the tranquility overseas. A British miler builds further on Roger Bannister's legacy, while a USC tailback lives up to one of college football's greatest traditions. Stay tuned for the Fight of the Year and the Performer of the Year, coming up on Sports 81, the George Plimpton Scrapbook.
The word strike took on a new meaning in baseball 1981 as mound conferences were replaced by litigation and infield flyers gave way to injunctions. As June began, a strike seemed a fait accompli. Another sure bet in June seemed to be a Triple Crown for Pleasant Colony. So we go back to Marshall Cassidy for the Belmont Stakes and the third and last jewel of the Triple Crown.
Summing leads on the rail by about 3 lengths as they approach the top of the stretch. Behind Summing is Pleasant Colony. Highland Blade on the outside. Escambia Bay on the rail. They're at the top of the stretch, and Summing maintains the lead by 2.5. Highland Blade on the outside now moving into second. Pleasant Colony is third, then Escambia Bay in fourth. Then it's Woodchopper and Tap Shoes down the stretch. Summing has the lead by 3.5. Highland Blade on the outside, second by a neck. Pleasant Colony is back into third. There's going to be an upset past the 8th hole. Summing still leads by 3. Highland Blade is second, gaining on the outside. Pleasant Colony still in third. They race to the wire. Summing still leads. Highland Blade is closing. Summing in front. And at the wire, it's Summing the winner by 3/4 of a length. Then Highland Blade was second. Pleasant Colony was third in the 113th Belmont Stakes. In discussing Pleasant Colony's disappointing show finish, some people claimed the horse had been disturbed by a firecracker and by a cameraman at the starting gate. But Johnny Campo said simply, "I have no excuses. I'm the same guy, win, lose, or draw."
In the same week as Campo's disappointment, another fellow kept ever so close to an historic achievement. 40-year-old Pete Rose moved within striking distance of the National League record of 3,630 career hits, held by Stan the Man Musial. Watching his mark being pursued made me dip into some of my old-time scrapbooks for another look at the man.
It's appropriate that the exalted hit record is held by Stan Musial, arguably the greatest pure hitter in National League history. The man played his entire career for St. Louis, leading the Cardinals to 4 World Series and becoming something of a local treasure. His career .331 batting average includes 17 seasons over 300 and 10 years with more than 100 RBIs. Musial's corkscrew batting stance was unorthodox, but oh so effective. His National League standard for most career hits has stood for 18 years. And ironically, number 3,630 was a single that eluded the reach of a Reds rookie second baseman named Pete Rose. And now the 60-year-old Hall of Famer has come to Philadelphia to join the Rose Watch. Against Nolan Ryan on June 10th, Pete Rose singles in his first at-bat to equal the man's mark in fine style. But it'll be 2 months before Rose can crack the deadlock. For 2 days later, the baseball season grinds to an unceremonious halt. The players' strike gives new meaning to the expression June swoon, and there's no joy here anymore. The rest of the sports world rolls right along, though, right along Philadelphia's main line, that is. In the second of the year's 4 major tournaments, David Graham is abusing Merion's unsullied East Course. Golf's top players failed to break par in 3 previous Opens played here. But Graham and a host of pursuers are conducting a relentless assault. Jack Nicklaus, the defending champion, is bidding for his 5th Open crown. Eventually, Nicklaus is deserted by his putting stroke, and he gives way to another challenge from George Burns. After leading through 3 rounds, Burns falls into a second-place tie with Bill Rogers, and both better Merion's inviolate 280 by 4 strokes. But the most disrespectful performer is David Graham, who batters Merion into submission with uncanny accuracy from tee to green. Graham misses only 1 fairway all day, and he bobs all 18 greens. Wrapping up his second major tournament crown, David Graham finishes with a 67 for a 273 total, the second lowest score in U.S. Open history. The longest drama in baseball history closes in June. No, the strike is nowhere near settlement, but a 32-inning marathon between two International League teams, the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings, thankfully gets itself a final chapter. Game had been suspended on Easter morning after 8 hours of play resulted in a 2-2 stalemate. Then, after being given more than 2 months to cool off, Pawtucket's Dave Koza strokes a bases-loaded single in the bottom of the 33rd to end baseball's longest game. It's not the way they might have dreamed it, but these minor leaguers have made it to the Hall of Fame. Heavyweight champion Larry Holmes has already ensured his place in boxing history, but he fights on with an unconquerable desire for acceptance. Leon Spinks is simply no match for Holmes' vicious two-fisted barrage. But even this crushing third-round TKO, his 38th win without a loss, does little to improve Larry Holmes' public image.
The problem for Holmes seemed to be finding legitimate challenges, gaining respect. Top honors for the month of June go to Pete Rose for playing like a man half his age. He was hitting .330 when he tied Musial's mark, and he gave baseball fans something pleasant to talk about while those stadiums remained dark.
Sports 81, the George Plimpton Scrapbook, is being brought to you by Intellivision, endless entertainment from Mattel Electronics. And by Lowenbrau. When you want the taste of a truly great beer, there's really only one. Tonight, let it be Lowenbrau. And by the U.S. Army. The Army, a great place to be, all you can be. And we'll take a look at some very special youngsters who keep on piling up the records. A return to glory for some heroes of yore, and a peek at the year's top woman athletes. Baseball makes a dramatic re-entry, and the season climaxes with an explosive autumn uprising. All this and more when we return to Sports 81, the George Plimpton Scrapbook.
The planned site of the baseball all-star game was nothing more than a white elephant as the baseball strike ended its second month. With America's summer game tied up at deuce, England's showcase event, the Fortnight of Wimbledon, took the advantage.
On July 3rd, the world's most prestigious tennis tournament prepares to crown a new queen. Chris Evert Lloyd has that hungry look again in her 7th Wimbledon final, while 19-year-old Hana Mandlikova is fighting the Wimbledon Willies in her first final. The 26-year-old Lloyd has been simply unconquerable on the lawns of Wimbledon after finishing runner-up here the last 3 years. She's not lost a single set all tourney. And while second-seeded Hana, the French Open champ, shows flashes of brilliance, the match is entirely one-sided. It's a one-hour rout for Wimbledon's adopted daughter, and Chris Evert Lloyd is the women's singles champion for the 3rd time. From the serenity and propriety of the women's game to the stormy men's competition and a July 4th final capping off 2 weeks of fireworks courtesy of John McEnroe.
Am I allowed to talk to myself and say that? I didn't say umpire, I said a disgrace to mankind to myself. I'd like the referee brought out, please, before you call the score.
Staid Wimbledon is stunned, and one row leads to another.
Don't point your finger at me, mister.
In one corner, a British champion of gossip, rebuffed after prying into McEnroe's love life. In the other, a staunch Yankee defender of his countrymen's privacy. The preliminary bout's a draw, but the main event on center court is between the top 2 heavyweights in tennis, Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe. The Iceman Borg is seeking his 6th straight Wimbledon crown, and McEnroe gives up his linesman's duties to concentrate on the formidable task at hand. After dropping the opening set 6-4, McEnroe wins 2 straight tiebreakers, and he's come within 1 set of deposing Borg. The implacable champion reminds all those present of his stirring comeback a year ago against this same stubborn foe. But McEnroe needs just one more game now, and he's playing undaunted. In the 4th hour, it's come down to match point, and the dogged pursuit of the 22-year-old John McEnroe finally pays off. After being embarrassed and outraged by his behavior for 2 weeks, England now toasts John